working to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Good evening, I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching ASEAN in Focus. On tonight's headlines. A 7.6 magnitude earthquake hit deep under the ocean of Indonesia and East Timor early Tuesday, injuring at least one person after rattling nearby islands, damaging homes and forcing residents to flee in panic. The Philippines has attracted 9 Chinese energy companies that will invest a total of about $13.76 billion to participate in the country's development of renewable energy, energy storage systems, and off-grid power supply systems. The Department of Agriculture said prices of onions may drop to around 100 pesos per kilo once an importation plan has been approved. And the Philippine Consulate General in New York expressed support on the calls of Filipino-American nurses employed in 2 hospitals in New York for better wages and working conditions. The Philippines has attracted 9 Chinese energy companies that will invest a total of about $13.76 billion to participate in the country's development of renewable energy, energy storage systems, and off-grid power supply systems. According to the Department of Energy Secretary Rafael Lotilla, the interested firms have responded positively to the country's policy directions on renewable energy. Let's listen in.
The 9 Chinese companies with about $13.76 billion worth of combined investments have pledged to invest in the country's RE, energy storage systems, and off-grid power supply systems. They have responded positively to the country's policy directions on renewable energy. Among the companies were China Energy International Group and China Power International Development, SPIC Guangxi Electric Power Company, and China Machinery Engineering Corporation, China General Nuclear Power Group, China Huadian Engineering Company, China Jiangyi Incorporated, Danjin Heavy Industry Company, and Mingyang Smart Energy Company. We also highlighted that in order to meet the 50% renewable energy target by 2040, we need an additional 52,000 megawatts of renewable energy by 2040. And of these 52,000, 27,000 will be from solar and another 16,000 from wind. And this does not yet take into account the development of the total offshore wind potential of 178,000 megawatts for the Philippines as a whole.
The Department of Trade and Industry organized investors' meetings on renewable energy, agribusinesses, nickel processing, and electric vehicle manufacturing as part of the President's state visit activities in Beijing, China. A UN-backed panel of experts concluded that the ozone layer recovery is on track, helping avoid global warming. UN spokesperson Stéphane Dujarric told journalists in New York that according to a report published every 4 years on the progress of the Montreal Protocol, the UN-backed scientific panel confirmed the phase-out of nearly 99% of banned ozone-depleting substances has succeeded in safeguarding the ozone layer. Let's listen in.
Lastly, some good news from our friend at the World Meteorological Organization and UN Environment Program. We don't often get good news from them. They tell us that the ozone layer is on track to recover within 4 decades. In a new report, a UN-backed scientific panel confirmed that the phase-out of nearly 99% of banned ozone-depleting substances has succeeded in safeguarding the ozone layer, leading to a notable recovery of the ozone layer in the upper stratosphere and decreased human exposure to harmful ultraviolet rays from the sun. UNEP says the impact of the Montreal Protocol, the international treaty designed to protect the ozone layer, which entered into force in 1989, cannot be overstressed. The panel also examined new technologies, such as geoengineering, for the first time, and warned that of the unintended impacts on the ozone layer caused by methods like stratospheric aerosol injection. Does anyone know what stratospheric aerosol injection is? Whoever does can ask a question, otherwise I'm leaving.
Since the mid-1970s, certain industrial aerosols have led to the depletion of ozone in the stratosphere, 11 to 40 kilometers above Earth's surface. In 1987, nearly 200 nations agreed on the Montreal Protocol to reverse damage to the ozone layer by banning chemicals that destroy this naturally occurring stratum of molecules in the atmosphere. The upper atmosphere ozone layer protects the Earth from the sun's harmful ultraviolet radiation, which is linked to skin cancer, eye cataracts, compromised immune systems, and agricultural land damage. But while the world pulled together to tackle the damage to the ozone layer, it has failed to curb carbon emissions quickly enough to forestall dangerous warming. A world barely 1.2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels has already been buffeted by record heat waves, droughts, and temperatures, and is headed for a disastrous 2.7 degrees Celsius above that benchmark. In tonight's other news, a 7.6 magnitude earthquake hit deep under the ocean off Indonesia and East Timor early Tuesday, injuring at least one person after rattling nearby islands, damaging homes and forcing residents to flee in panic. Indonesia's meteorology, climatology, and geophysics agency, or the BAMKG or KG, said the tremor was felt on the eastern islands of Timor, the Maluku archipelago, and Papua. It reported some aftershocks at a magnitude of 5.5. The country's disaster mitigation agency, or the BNBP, said at least 15 homes, 2 schools had been damaged in the Tanimbar Islands. The strongest jolt was felt in Saumlaki, the archipelago's biggest town with a population of 8,000 people. Pictures shared by the agency showed damage to homes in several villages in southwest Maluku Regency. The Indonesian Geophysics Agency warned about a potential tsunami initially and then lifted the warning. The quake was felt as far as Darwin, capital of Australia's Northern Territory, where at least 1,000 people reported it to the Australian Geoscience Agency. Indonesia experiences frequent seismic activity due to its position on the Pacific Ring of Fire, where tectonic plates collide. On November 21, a 5.6 magnitude quake hit the populous West Java province on the main island of Java, killing 602 people. A major earthquake off Sumatra on December 26, 2004 set off an Indian Ocean tsunami that killed more than 230,000 people as far away as Sri Lanka, India, and Thailand. Now, that powerful 9.1 magnitude quake triggered 100-foot waves that hit the shore of Banda Aceh on Sumatra. Myanmar authorities have sentenced 112 Rohingya, including a dozen children, to between 2 and 5 years in prison for attempting to travel to Malaysia without legal documents. Now, the group were arrested last month in the southern Ayeyarwady region and sentenced on January 6, according to a report by the Global New Light of Myanmar, which cited local police. The children were transferred to a youth training school near commercial hub Yangon on January 8, according to the newspaper, without giving further details. The report referred to the group as Bengalis, using a pejorative word for the Muslim minority who are denied citizenship in Buddhist-majority Myanmar and often require permission to travel. A military crackdown in Myanmar in 2017 sent hundreds of thousands of Rohingya fleeing into neighboring Bangladesh, with harrowing stories of murder, rape, and arson. Myanmar is facing genocide accusations at the United Nations Top Court following the mass exodus. Thousands of Rohingya risk their lives each year, making perilous journeys from camps in Bangladesh and Myanmar to reach Muslim-majority Malaysia and Indonesia. On Sunday, a wooden boat carrying nearly 200 Rohingya refugees, a majority of them women and children, landed on Indonesia's western coast, the fifth to arrive since November, according to authorities. Malaysia's new prime minister met with Indonesia's president on his first foreign trip after winning a confidence vote and cementing his mandate last month following an inconclusive election. Indonesia and Malaysia agreed to strengthen cooperation to increase palm oil market and fight against discrimination to the sector. Malaysian leader Anwar Ibrahim, a longtime opposition leader, was sworn in as the country's 10th prime minister on November 24 to head a unity government in a shaky alliance with the graft-tainted party of his former political rivals. And he thanked his counterpart for his support after the election. Let's listen in.
Yang kelima, kita juga tadi bersepakat memperkuat kerjasama melalui Council of Palm Oil Producing Countries, CPOPC, untuk meningkatkan pasar minyak kelapa sawit dan memerangi diskriminasi terhadap kelapa sawit. 11 letter of intent telah ditandatangani oleh sektor swasta Malaysia dan diserahkan kepada otoritas IKN yang bergerak di bidang elektronik, kesehatan, pengelolaan limbah, konstruksi dan properti.
Itu kita ambil pendekatan yang positif, itu mencari jalan supaya pertumbuhan ibu kota negara Nusantara itu akan juga memberi manfaat kepada wilayah yang termasuk Sarawak dan Sabah. Hidup dalam keadaan terombang-ambing, derita, itu Indonesia itu menyambut kita sebagai sahabat sejati. Sebab itu saya beritahu semalam pada media, itu tak mungkin kita lupakan, ya, orang yang sedia membantu kita, menunjukkan rahmah dan menyayangi kita dalam keadaan kita itu agak tersisih, terbuang atau terlempar.
President Widodo said the world's two biggest exporters of palm oil would boost cooperation on the commodity and work together to battle discrimination against the sector, which environmentalists say is stoking deforestation in both countries. The European Union last month agreed on a new law preventing companies from selling products linked to deforestation. The Indonesian leader also lauded the interest of Malaysian companies in investing in the country's new capital, Nusantara, which is scheduled to open on the island of Borneo next year. Ahead of the talks, the Indonesian leader greeted Anwar before driving him around the palace's gardens in an electric buggy. The pair then discussed issues including trade, border disputes, and the situation in coup-hit Myanmar. It's customary that the first foreign visit of a new Malaysian premier takes place in neighboring Indonesia, which counts Kuala Lumpur as its fifth biggest export market. Indonesia, the world's third largest democracy, this year takes the chairmanship of the ASEAN group of Southeast Asian nations, in which junta-led Myanmar remains a member and will host a leaders' summit in November. Here in the Philippines, the Department of Agriculture said prices of onions may drop to around 100 pesos per kilo once an importation plan has been approved. In an interview, DA Assistant Secretary Rex Esto Perez said the importation consideration is the response to inflation, with red onion prices still ranging from 480 pesos to 600 pesos per kilo in Metro Manila. Again, let's listen in.
Projection na dapat umabot siya doon sa September level na umabot lang sa 150 or 200. Eh kasi nung nagkaroon ng December, may holiday tayo, tumaas ang demand, umalagwa yung presyo, hindi natugunan yung ating supply ng sibuyas sa ating mga merkado, even doon na nag-umpisa na po yung off-season harvest noon. Tapos yung must arrive siya, dapat hindi lumagpas siya sa January 27 na ang ating pong rekomendasyon ay end of this month or not to exceed February, yung first week of February. Then, na dapat dumating po ang ating mga sibuyas na import bago po mag-peak harvest ang ating mga onion growers.
Now, the DA earlier said it projects 19,000 metric tons of onion harvest, which is expected to help lower market prices. However, it recommended importing 22,000 metric tons to help stabilize the cost of onions, with 50% allocation for Metro Manila and 25% each for Visayas and Mindanao. In other news, the Philippine Consulate General in New York expressed support on the calls of Filipino-American nurses employed in 2 hospitals in New York for better wages and working conditions. Now, this statement came as thousands of nurses employed at Montefiore Medical Center in the Bronx and Mount Sinai Hospital in Manhattan went on a strike on January 9 New York time after contract negotiations stalled over better pay and improved staffing standards. When New York City became the epicenter of the pandemic in the spring of 2020, our kababayan nurses stayed true to their oath to take care for the sick and the dying, sometimes at the expense of their very own lives, according to the consulate. It added, for their compassion, dedication, and selflessness, their call for better employment terms and conditions should be heeded. The consulate expressed hope that the parties involved would soon have a mutually acceptable resolution. Local reports said more than 7,000 nurses from the 2 hospitals participated in the strikes, staged at 3 locations in the Bronx and 1 in Manhattan. In a previous statement, the New York State Nurses Association said its main issue is the crisis of chronic understaffing that harms patient care. China invoked Germany's painful history in slamming a visit to Taiwan by a high-ranking parliamentary delegation from Berlin in an apparent reference to the country's wartime record, as it called on the lawmakers to respect Beijing's sovereignty over the island. China Monday invoked Germany's painful history in slamming Taiwan visit by a high-ranking parliamentary delegation from Berlin. This is an apparent reference to the country's wartime record. The group of German lawmakers arrived in the self-ruled island ahead of an anticipated ministerial visit later this year, with one delegation member describing Beijing's increased saber-rattling towards Taiwan as unacceptable. China's foreign ministry swiftly condemned the visit. Let's listen in.
We are really happy to be here as common legislators, to get in touch, to talk about issues, to get to know each other better. Questions regarding the conflict in the Taiwan Strait are complex, very complex. And you know that Germany, we as Free Democrats, as the whole European Union and our Western allies, we support a one-China policy. But having said that, we want to also say, as Free Democrats and as one part of the legislative majority forming the new German government, that we support Taiwan when it comes to making it totally clear that military aggression and the threat of military aggression coming from Beijing is unacceptable. And we want to also that you see our visit here as a gesture of support.
台湾问题是中国
The Taiwan question is at the very core of China's core interests. The One China principle is the fundamental basis for countries with diplomatic relations with China to develop relations with China. Taiwan is part of China, and the government of China is the sole government representing the whole of China. We urge relevant parliamentarians to stop sending wrong messages to Taiwan authorities. China will take resolute measures to safeguard its sovereignty and territorial integrity. We must point out that the root of the Taiwan question is the rule of the jungle and the rampaging of militarists. Germany has its historical lessons. Over the past half a century, China has been fighting against hegemony and invasion. We will not allow any attempt to turn the Asia-Pacific into an arena for geopolitical conflict.
The Chinese military yesterday carried out another military exercise around Taiwan.
方军东部战区新闻发言人已经就此作出。
Spokesperson of the PLA has already had explanations. The relevant drills are aimed at against the inclusion of external forces against peace in the Taiwan Strait. Next question, please.
Now, China's Communist Party regards Democratic Taiwan as its own territory and has vowed to one day take the island, even by force. Under President Xi Jinping, Beijing has ramped up military, economic, and diplomatic pressure on Taiwan because its current elected government regards the island as an already sovereign nation and not part of one China. The deputies on the Taiwan visit are from the Pro-Business Free Democratic Party, or FDP, a junior partner in Germany's coalition government. Thailand's embattled Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha vowed to fix the kingdom's problems as he launched his re-election bid at a major rally in the capital, Bangkok. The move unofficially kicks off months of campaigning ahead of expected polls in the year. Take a look.
ไม่ใช่ผมอยากเป็นใหญ่ไม่อยากมีอำนาจผมมีมาเยอะแล้วอำนาจผมมีมาทั้งชีวิตของผมในนั้นนะครับปัญหาของประเทศนั้นผมอยู่มาหลายปีผมทราบและผมพยายามแก้มาอย่างต่อเนื่องมันมากจริงๆนะครับเพราะฉะนั้นถ้าผมได้มีโอกาสผมก็จะทำแก้ปัญหานั้นต่อไปให้มากขึ้นเรื่อยๆ
Thailand's economy is struggling with its vital tourism industry decimated by the pandemic and now by global headwinds causing rising inflation and economic stagnation. Prayut came to power as army chief in a 2014 coup before cementing his position in a controversial 2019 election and can lead the country for only 2 more years under the current military constitution. The announcement confirms local media reporting that Prayut has left PPRP, which leads the ruling coalition. That party has announced its leader and acting Deputy PM Prawit Wongsuwan will be its candidate. The date of the election hasn't been decided, but if Parliament ends its term in March, the stage is set for a vote in May. And Chinese tourists bounded back into Thailand on Monday after Beijing eased travel rules. Welcomed at Bangkok's main airport by officials with flowers and gift bags. Chinese tourist Zhang, who booked her flight 2 weeks ago, said she had a last-minute panic about possible travel restrictions. Take a look.
其实我们在前一天还特地去厦门的机场问就是地勤说到底是需要哪些手续，我们也生怕这憋了3年要来了，很怕落地之后政策跟我们所预料的不一样，到时候会卡关。然后当时地勤给的答复也是说，现在新规刚出来，也不是那么确定，所以我们在周6跟周日2天心情是很忐忑的，我们也很。
对，这是19年以来的第1次出国，3年了没出国。 对，因为以前一直就是经常来泰国、马来西亚这边也经常过来，但是疫情原因吧，完了所以说很期待出国，现在其实对，
Now, earlier, Health Minister Anutin Charnvirakul said that arrivals would not be required to show vaccination records or undergo tests. The Southeast Asian kingdom was heavily reliant on visitors from China pre-pandemic. with Chinese travelers accounting for roughly 30% of its tourists. Thailand's economy has been battered by COVID and the current global downturn, with officials now hopeful Beijing's decision to reopen could help its recovery. The 269 arrivals on a flight from the southeastern Chinese city of Xiamen on Monday were greeted with flowers and gift bags containing hand sanitizers and face masks. Thailand was hoping for at least 5 million Chinese tourists in 2023, but authorities warned that numbers would be lower than previously, with only 15 China flights a week compared to around 400 pre-pandemic. Now, officials have forecast roughly 20 million tourists will visit Thailand this year, far off the 40 million arrivals pre-pandemic. And as my usual habit, I'd like to end the day on a positive note. Let's encourage and build each other up so that no one is left behind. And that's it for tonight's broadcast of ASEAN in Focus. Stay in the news because we live in extraordinary times. Good night.